research that hopefully can help fuel this powerful building of company culture for you. So I'd like to welcome up on stage here Glassdoor's President and Chief Operating Officer to help kick things off, Christian Sutherland Wong.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Awesome to be here for this Best Places to Work event. As Sam said, we're here to honor some of our Best Places to Work award winners, but more importantly, to get to meet them, learn from them, and find out what is it their companies do that makes them such awesome and great places that their employees want to come to our platform and tell the world all about it. When we began Glassdoor 11 years ago now, we saw a big problem in the world, and that was that for people, there really wasn't the information you need to make one of life's most important decisions, the decision on where to work. If you think about it, for a job seeker, go back 11 years ago, there was no resource out there that would tell you, is this company the type of company that I'm going to fit in? Is this company the place I want to take my career bet on? And this wasn't just a problem for job seekers. This was also fundamentally a problem for employers and companies as well, because no employer wants to have to interview candidates who ultimately aren't going to be a great fit for their company. And worse still, you don't want to employ a candidate who's not a great fit and make a costly hiring mistake. So for the last 11 years at Glassdoor, we've been working really, really hard on solving this problem. And it's something that we at Glassdoor are very, very passionate about. And we feel really proud of the impact we've had to date. So today, fast forward 11 years, we are one of the world's largest online jobs and recruiting sites, growing very fast. We have millions of people who come to our platform every single day, millions of job seekers. And we also have thousands and thousands of employers and companies just like you who are also coming to our platform and engaging as well. And one of the great things about having so many people come to your site every day is that many of these people write into us, and they tell us about the impact that we've had on them. And from job seekers, we hear about how grateful they are for a site like Glassdoor, and for the resource it is to them. They tell us about how Glassdoor has helped them find their dream job. And they tell us even when Glassdoor helped them from making a big career mistake. And we hear very often from employers as well of how Glassdoor is really changing the game on recruiting for them, on how the candidates they get from Glassdoor are far more informed than any other source, and therefore far better quality than any other source of where they're getting candidates from. And that means they're therefore more likely to hire these candidates, and these candidates are going to be happier, more productive employees and stay for the longer term. So 2019 is turning out to be a really big year for us at Glassdoor. In January, we welcomed a record 64 million users to our site, and we continue to grow very, very rapidly. And we're not only having big user growth, our users are also engaging with our site and our products at levels we've never seen before. Just from the Glassdoor's business perspective, from our financials, where we continue to grow very well, and we're in a really strong financial position in terms of profitability and a strong balance sheet, which means that we're going to use 2019 as a huge investment year. It'll be Glassdoor's biggest investment year yet. One of the major areas we're investing in is international. Just last month, we launched into 3 new country domains in New Zealand, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And these are just the first of a number of countries we hope to launch in new domains in this year as part of a big concerted effort to bring Glassdoor more globally. And we're also investing a lot in our product and our engineering teams as well. As we look at the recruiting process today, we see a lot of opportunities to make it more efficient and more effective for all of you. And we think at Glassdoor that we're in a very unique position to do that better than any other platform. If you think about it, we are the site that really understands companies that are very unique and kind of like the DNA of what a company is like as an employer, like no other platform can know. And with all the millions of people who are coming to our site and engaging with our product and showing us their preferences and their behavior and millions of resumes they're uploading and profiles they're creating on our site, we see this opportunity where we can bring all of this data together that can better match that perfect candidate with that perfect opportunity at that perfect time. But more on that to come later. Today we're here to talk about best places to work. And to kick things off, I'm going to have a conversation with a company who was one of our 2019 Best Places to Work honorees, and that company is Compass. If you haven't heard of Compass, well, I'd say you probably should have heard of Compass by now, but if you haven't, they're effectively revolutionizing one of the world's largest and most traditional industries, the real estate industry. The way I like to think of them is they're kind of a mixture of a tech company and kind of meets a traditional real estate brokerage coming together. They began in 2012. They're growing extremely rapidly, the fastest growing real estate brokerage in the US, with ambitions of not only being the biggest real estate brokerage in the US, but also globally. But what's really important, I think very unique about Compass, is that these guys really get employee engagement. And they really understand the power of engaging your employees, and they really understand how employee engagement ultimately drives their business success. They're also on the forefront of their thinking around diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and I think there's a lot we can learn from them there as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Madan Nagaldeen, who is the Chief People Officer at Compass. Welcome, Madan. How are you?
Likewise.
Cool. Just to give you a quick intro, Madan. Force in the industry, very much been on the forefront of many of Compass's very forward-thinking people practices. And some background information, in addition to being currently Chief People Officer at Compass, formerly Chief People Officer at Outcome Health, and had senior executive positions at Facebook and Amazon. So a great force in the industry, a person who's very passionate about our industry. And so I'm very excited to talk with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to talk to you as well.
Awesome. So I gave my kind of take on Compass and its business model and what it's all about. But how about you tell the audience about what Compass does?
I was hoping that I could recruit you back into Compass. This is great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the chance to talk to all of you out here. So the way I kind of like to describe Compass is think of it as a real estate technology company building the first true end-to-end platform in real estate that is going to help, or that is going to change the way we experience buying and selling real estate. Or buying and selling homes. But the difference is that we believe that this transformation is going to happen with the agent at the center of it, as opposed to others who say, oh, the agent is not going to be there. We're so pro-agent, and we believe that if we can transform the agent's business through great products, technologies, and services for them, they would transform your real estate buying experience. Which, if you look at the numbers, it's pretty staggering. If I told you that the residential real estate brokerage commission dollars, the dollars that you and I as Americans pay to our brokers to buy and sell homes in the US, is bigger than the businesses of Google and Facebook in the US put together, most people wouldn't believe it. It is a staggering $75 billion a year. That's just commission dollars. This is not home value. This is just a commission dollar. Just residential and commercial is 5x that. Wow. And then worldwide, it's more than $1 trillion of transaction. It's also really interesting that it is one of those incredible industries which has over 2 million entrepreneurs. There are 2 million real estate agents in the US running their businesses on their own, small towns, big towns, et cetera, making anywhere from a $50K a year to a $5 million a year and everything in between. So what it does is it truly goes into the heart of local communities. So the transformation, unlike other businesses where you could have a winner-take-all, where you have a central massive conglomerate, I came from 2 of them, and then everything else gets built around that. I think this is such an incredible industry where you're actually seeing local businesses and local communities flourish with what we're trying to do for them, which is create these technologies and services for them. So that's a little bit about Compass.
And just to dig in a little bit further, so you talk a lot about the agent. Is the agent your customer, or do you view them as your employees?
Yeah, the agents are our customers. That is our fundamental way of how we think about our agents. They sit alongside with us. So one of the things that is unique to us is that we get a chance to see what our customers are talking about us and talking about the product on a daily basis. Right, so we have our agents and our employees sit together. We're about 10,000 agents right now in about 163 offices in the US and about 2,000 employees. So one of the things is we get to learn from reality on a daily basis. So you don't need to wait for some data to come in to see how your products are doing. It's there right in front of you.
That's fantastic. And then is your business model is the same business model as a traditional real estate brokerage?
Right. I think that's a very interesting question. So the traditional real estate brokerage, to a large extent, brings in a bunch of brokers and they just create an office space and let them loose in the market. There's very little support. Yeah. There's very little vision around technology, very little vision around using data to eventually impact the way you buy and sell real estate. It's still not changed, right? If you think about the home that you might have bought recently, it's pretty much the same in terms of experience that if you had purchased one 15 years ago. And if you have your conversation with your parents, they would say, well, I went through the same thing. It hasn't changed. This is one of those industries that's taking a long time for technology to be truly transformative in this place. I think when that is going to happen, you're going to see an exponential change in the way we would kind of consume real estate. And that would happen, in our view, with the agent at the center of the transformation.
Very cool. As I was researching you guys, I came across the Compass has these 8 entrepreneurship principles.
Yeah.
Tell us about them and how important they are to your business.
So there's a little story about this. So Robert Reffkin, our CEO, by the way, and he was supposed to be here, so and he had a baby, a third baby. So I forced him to say, you got to take your paternity leave. I did all of that, and if you don't follow that, it doesn't make sense. So 2 years ago, when I joined Compass, one of the things that he told me was saying, hey, Madan, we've got a bunch of these values, et cetera. They are helpful early on. But I don't see myself on a daily basis kind of displaying those behaviors, but I see myself and a bunch of people out here displaying behaviors which are more entrepreneurial in nature. Like this is what success looks like at Compass. You got to think like an entrepreneur. You have your customers right next to you. And there are a bunch of behaviors that are just coming across naturally for me and a bunch of people. And so we gravitated from being very corporatish and saying, oh, a big bunch of values, et cetera, and we'll just kind of live around that, to saying that the way we're building our business is now being based on these entrepreneurial principles. So can we actually flesh them out in a way that we can now teach it to others? And today we have eight principles. We're super excited about it. But what's key is that the way we talk about talent, the way we make decisions on how to hire, who to hire, how to promote, who moves into some other roles, or what is the way we think about growth, is based on these principles. So that's become our currency, our language on talent. The example that I can give you is in an Amazon, if you go to today, even at 600,000 employees, Amazon describes its talent based on those 12 leadership principles. You cannot, as an Amazon leader, have any other language than those 12 principles. So, and that has helped them scale. So we've taken, for us, and it was our entrepreneurial principle, which today is a language that we use to describe anything in the company, good, bad, ugly. It's kind of built around that base. So what it does is, without you even trying, you start to create this culture of thinking like an entrepreneur. Like, for example, one of my favorite is learn from reality. That's one of our principles. There are 8 of them. One of my favorite is learn from reality, which is, for us, it happens on a daily basis, right? If your product is not working and your agent is telling you this is not working out, you get a chance to truly course correct. And the way we've described that and the way we've used this in all of the HR systems is now where this is truly, it's a living and breathing thing in the company.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that these entrepreneurial values not only apply to your actual employees, but as you think of the agents that who effectively represent Compass, because from the buyer's perspective, when they see Compass on is the company selling this property, it's the agent, right? So I guess you want them to live those values.
They love it. In fact, we have Workplace at Facebook, Workplace by Facebook as our internal community, our digital tool that brings us all together. You will see the number of hashtags with obsess about opportunity or dream big or whatever be the entrepreneurial principle that they like. It's unbelievable how it's kind of caught on like wildfire without us even trying.
Wow.
Because all agents are very entrepreneurial, right? They decided to become an agent because they didn't want to work in a company and they don't want to go back. And so once you kind of get that together, it's just not an entrepreneur, not just our principle from an employee standpoint, but also our agents as well.
And how do you, given that you actually have your employees and then you have your agents who are still representing Compass, how do you make sure how do you translate many of these values and also even your culture between a very diverse workforce, from the tech guys who true employees of Compass to your agents as well? Yeah,
I think there are some disproportional. There's roles that have disproportional impact on how you kind of transfer. You kind of diffuse your culture. One of that is the role of the manager. We're obsessed about it. We're just obsessed about creating great managers. For example, there's a company-wide OKR that I am personally responsible for, which reads something like this, that we will build and grow and develop the world's greatest managers, and that's inspirational. Now comes the tough part. As measured by 92% of Compass employees agreeing and strongly agreeing with the statement that I will recommend my managers to others in Compass.
That's phenomenal.
And that is an OKR I cannot run away from. And I did all this training, et cetera. Many companies, you invest a lot in training, but you really don't have the measures to see whether this is working or not, and you don't kind of assign accountability to leaders who are supposed to get that number done. So for example, we got to 84% this year, and Robert views this as not a full success from me. He's like, you didn't get to 90. So at 84, I would say, my God, what a great job that I did and my team did. But that's the way we push ourselves. So that is how we've kind of invested in developing managers, holding them accountable. Every manager at Compass, 4 times a year, you get a score on how you're doing as a manager, and then you get your red, green, and orange kind of areas. We amplify what's green, and we work on what's red. And if you continue to keep getting reds, that you're not a great manager, your team's telling all of us that this is not working out, you're done being a manager. I wouldn't stand for that, because you're such a levered role, right? Most of us here will agree with the statement that 80% of what you experience in your life is through your manager. And if you really have a bad manager, it doesn't matter how good the culture is of the company, you're not going to be engaged. So that's how we've kind of used the manager as a highly levered role. So if you look at it, the experience that I learned from at Amazon, which is really interesting, which is at Amazon, the biggest sauce, secret sauce is they have this unique ability to rinse and repeat success. Be it in their Slough office in UK, or Hyderabad in India, or Osaka in Japan, or Seattle out here, or here in New York. It is the same thing happening every single day. You wouldn't be able to make out the difference between an Amazon office in any different country. It is so homogeneous. That's the rinse and repeat that they have as processes to kind of get that done. We're trying to do that out here. So if you walk into our Miami office, you walk into our Calabasas office, or Boston, or San Diego, it is the same. The way we train our managers, the way people experience this two-way dialogue, as opposed to a monologue, is what we've created in the company.
Very cool. Employee engagement. So what is it, when you think about the definition of employee engagement and what it means to you, what is that?
Yeah, it's a kind of core of what I do. And one of the things that I've always held is, why do we exist as HR people? Is it to make people happy? Is it to have a highly engaged workforce? So what I've kind of done is I've kind of defined the vision for my team as we exist for one simple reason, which is to help our leaders make great people decisions every single day. That's it. If you really look at it, our job is to initiate a decisioning system in the company so that you, as the leader, get to make great people decisions every day. And what we've done, if we've broken this down further, you can actually bucket this into 6 areas. Usually managers or companies make people decisions on 6 different buckets. One is, how do you assess and who do you bring on? So what people call as recruiting and onboarding. And how do you onboard people to success, and how do you make them productive very quickly? There's a lot of decisioning happening there. Goal setting and conversations, et cetera. 3 is, what is your philosophy on compensation? How do you as a manager decide how much do you pay? When do you promote? What equity do you give people? How do you reward? How do you recognize? There's a bunch of decisions.
And you give autonomy at the manager level for those types of decisions?
We do that, and we have our HR business partners working closely with managers so they make good decisions on compensation. The 4th one is on performance and feedback. The 5th one and the last one is on how do you create a continuous learning organization? What knowledge structures do you create in the organization, or are you responsible for as a manager to create that creates this continuous learning? So if you take these 6 pillars, it's actually about, I'm an engineer by training, so I'll go down the math. It's actually about 60 questions that you can map out in a grid that you need to make people decisions on. And then you get your managers to make the same good decisions across 60 different questions. You get a great organization instantaneously. It'll only take you 6 to 8 months to make sure that once you kind of map this grid on these 6 pillars, it could be 7, it could be 8, there are a few other things, but then you go down each pillar and say, okay, on assessing and bringing in great talent, these are the 5 or 6 decision points that are there that we need to make good decisions, and then go down the path. For example, let me drill down on this. Compensation. How do you make a great compensation decision? What most people want to know, most people want to know about compensation is, how do you pay people? What is your compensation philosophy? How do I get promoted out here? How do increases happen? Who decides my increase? And who decides if I want to rotate into another job? If I want to be a manager, who makes that call? Who decides how much equity do I need to get? And who decides my final rating? Right? Most companies do not talk about this. We actually do brown bags across the company, across all offices, talking about how compensation, performance, and feedback work at Compass. And I take very hard questions, which is saying that, oh, are you sure that men and women are being paid the same? Did you run an analysis on that? And hey, Madan, there are only 14% of the people that got promoted this cycle. Last year, 18% of people got promoted. What's going on? Or if I get promoted as a manager, do I get paid more than staying as an individual contributor? These are the questions, the multiple questions people have, but most companies don't talk about comp.
Yeah.
They kind of at best have a wiki somewhere, which really doesn't make any sense. So what we've done is we've trained our HR business partners to make sure that managers have answers. So people can go and ask their manager any questions on compensation, performance, reviews, promotion, equity, when will I get, am I on track to get promoted or not? And that creates that level of openness and being transparent, which creates engagement, which creates this enhanced sense of well-being and happiness and all of that stuff. Because most of the problem that my function has is that we're kind of like, oh, these are the team that engages employees or makes employees happy. That is such a soft kind of goal. It doesn't allow you to get a seat at the table. But when you kind of take a decisioning view, right? What does your CFO do? She or he creates phenomenal financial decisioning systems for you, right? So as an HR leader, your job is to create, or at least I take this very seriously, that my job and my team's job is to create this decisioning system on talent. And once you get that done, it'll take you some time to get that done, then all the outcomes that you want start to appear pretty quickly.
I mean, I feel like to take that even a step further, I think the best people leaders not only execute well on these people processes, but can also show that by executing well on these people processes, you ultimately drive business outcomes.
Right.
And do you measure that? Are you able to see that when you have greater employee engagement, or when you are able to measure that managers, they do hit that 90 OKR, that leads to downstream that the company is doing better?
Very much so. I think it's so clear that managers who have great manager scores have usually very, very high scores on their results, on their OKRs, on their outcomes, et cetera. And it's a very direct correlation. I mean, it's not even like a soft correlation. It's very, very strong. And so what we've done is we've taken both a creative and a very tough data-led approach to OKRs. So the creative part is how we write them. It's not just like, oh, improve customer satisfaction by X. I mean, it would be like build technology that our agents can't live without. Right? That's an inspirational OKR for an engineer. And then you have 85% of the agents strongly agree with our search technology is the very best in the world. Now, that's a tough goal to hit. So what we've done, what Robert and Mayal, the two leaders, our CEO, both of them have done, is try to say, can we mix being creative and data together? So what we get is both inspiration and tough measures, so we become a better company.
That's fantastic. I'm going to come back to my compensation philosophy, and I think for many of the companies here and also on the live stream, we have representation from large businesses, but also many small businesses. And I think one of the challenge for a small business, which Compass was just a few years ago, is that it's hard to sometimes compete when you've got these other bigger companies throwing really big paycheck offers around. How has Compass approached? What's been the Compass compensation philosophy? How does Compass compete when you've got a Google or a Facebook, competing for that tech talent, or really anybody else?
Yeah, we compete every single day. So just to tell the audience out here, we were only 200 people 18 months ago. Right? We were a small company. So when I joined, I think I was employee number 230 or 220. And today we're about closer to about 2,000 employees and about 10,000 agents in about 20 months. So every day we've had to compete, Christian. So it's kind of been it's been a great learning from reality moment for me, which is a part of our entrepreneurship principle. So what works? Let's get to that. Number one, if you're a small company, you have to triple down on how many times the story about your company is told outside. There is nothing that can beat that. Not a great career page, not some design, not some being in some event. All of them help. But you need to double down on two things. One, you need to double down. I'll come back to how much I love Glassdoor, about why I think this is such an important strategy out here. You really need to get the story outside. To give you an example, we have 58 recruiters at Compass today. Each of them reach about 6-7 new people every day. So I am reaching close to 400 new potential employees every day. The story is going out 400 times. And most of the stories is about what's Compass, what are you guys trying to do, but also about, hey, I read this at Glassdoor. Tell me more about this. I saw that you did this, or I saw that your benefits are great at that, but not at this. I saw a couple of employees not giving you 1-star rating, so what's the truth? So people want human connections. You cannot replace this with technology. So I think what we've done is we've merged what most of the questions that people get are, I saw this on Glassdoor, what's the real deal out here? Both the good and bad. So I think that's been so if you are, I look at it this way, this is a really stunning stat that I was shocked when I first moved to Facebook from Amazon. My boss at Facebook, Laurie Goller, who's still the head of HR, 10th year, great leader, she never gave me headcount for HR. But every time I asked her for a headcount in recruiting, she would give me 3 times that. So I'm like, what's going on out here? I used my job was to manage HR for 14 different countries in Asia, from Australia, where you come from, all the way to Japan, Korea, all of those countries. And I got very little headcount on HR, but I got just tremendous amount of headcount on recruiting. If you look at the Google and Amazon, the Facebook story, they outcompete with their stories being told by the recruiters every single day. Today, I think there are about 7,000 people in Facebook, in HR. 6,000 of them are recruiters. Right? Now, the Facebook story is going out like 30,000 times a day, five times. So that's one of the things that we have done. So if you're a small company, invest in figuring out how do you get your story out. Invest in training your recruiters. Recruiters know their job by and large. Right? There's only so much value that you can get by training them on how to recruit better.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of value you can gain as a CEO or as a senior leader in the company saying, this is how you would pitch Compass. This is how you would pitch your company.
Yeah.
This is how you would pitch the vision. This is how you would pitch the opportunity, the addressable market. And this is how you would pitch, or if you have objections, this is how to answer them. So when I spend time with my recruiters, I don't try and do their job. They know it better than me.
Yep.
But what I do is I ask them to pitch Compass to me, and I make some tweaks and corrections. So I've always found that if you, as an HR leader or a recruiting leader, can help your team pitch better, you're going to start winning. Because people want that connection. I think, Samantha, you had said, people make their most important decisions in life 4 or 5 times about where they want to work. 80% of our life is spent at working in companies, right? And so when you make these decisions today, I think before you guys came or became really big, there was really no engine that I could trust. Probably I would make a call based on the hiring manager, calls 2 or 3 people about the company, et cetera. But I think what you guys built is what I call as the first believability engine, right? I can believe this engine without me being kind of influenced by anyone. Because there's both the good and bad and the skinny out there. And then you kind of use that as your first step to tell the story. Very quickly, you will start seeing a whole bunch of people that you thought were not interested before starting to get interested about you. That has, for me at least, I don't know of any other strategy. That's my only single-threaded view on recruiting.
Yeah.
They get the story out.
Yeah. One thing I think you're experiencing now at Compass in kind of this hyper-growth mode, and I think we've historically experienced as we've been growing Glassdoor, and I personally experienced when I was in the early days of working at LinkedIn, is there's a huge focus on the recruiting side, which I think speaks to the fact that you couldn't get any HR heads, but you could easily get recruiting heads. But sometimes at the kind of to a fault in that there's not potentially enough investment in for when the people are on board, how do we make sure that we're developing them? How do we make sure they have an amazing career at my company? And that's ultimately what really drives employee engagement and I think leads to a lot of company success. So how has Compass approached this? Is it something you guys feel really good about how you're doing right now? Is it something which you say, look, we're in this hyper-growth stage right now. We just need to get everyone on the bus. We'll figure that stuff out later. Yeah. Where's Compass on that curve?
Yeah, I think there's lots of work to be done, but I think we've got some good momentum going into this. One of the things that we've done is we've just relooked at how we onboard people completely. So we've got an onboarding process called as context and not control, right? So when you look at most people today, we all have the internet, so you have access to knowledge.
Yeah.
So you don't need to kind of be onboarded too much about specific knowledge. Of course, there are some teams that might be different. So what we've done is we've provided context about the company in the first 8 weeks. So our onboarding is 8 weeks, 1 hour a day, and that's it. So every day you have a leader coming in talking about their function. Our CMO comes in, talks about their function. What went well last year?
Yeah.
What does great look like? What does world-class look like? What's it that they're doing that time? I mean, what's the focus for this year? And so on and so forth. And we cover all the functions. What we've been told by our new hires is this is the best onboarding they've had. Because what people want in onboarding is 2 things. One, they want to know what is the pattern to be successful at your company? Mm-hmm. If you did nothing but just spent half an hour in giving real-life examples on saying what does success look like, how have people been successful in your company, that you could do a far better job onboarding than any other training, because to a large extent, the training is going to happen through people, colleagues, and everything else learning. So that's one thing that we have learned where we've reduced the complexity. I'm really big in keeping things very simple. One of my heroes is this company. I mean, how many of you have heard about have tasted the 5-hour energy drink? Many of you have. Do you know that it is a company that I think has 75 employees and 1.5 billion in revenue? Only 75 employees.
75 employees.
You should listen to their CEO, Manoj Bhargava. He is just an unbelievable guy.
Wow.
On simplicity. How do you simplify things? So for me, it's all about saying don't complicate it. Because if you look at it, most people are self-managed. Not everybody, most of them are. What they want is context. So we've used that version of keeping it light and airy as you come in and reduce the stress. And the biggest thing is we ask, most people do the survey, right? At the end of 30 days, you get a 30-question survey on your onboarding. We only want to know 3 things. Did you have your one-on-one with your manager? Are you set up? Do you know your goals? And do you have the tools to be successful? And how can we help? There's nothing else. Everything else is fluff. Right? Did you welcome properly? Was the lunch better?
Sure.
Is your, whatever, your laptop, can it be better? Those are important, don't get me wrong, but they don't move the needle, right? What moves the needle are some 4 or 5 questions, and you would see that in everything, on all aspects of HR, there are only about 4 or 5 things that move the needle dramatically. If you look at assessment, one of the things that my team, I'm so proud of my recruiting team, they've done what we found is what candidates want to know. When they give you a great score on Glassdoor or they ding you on Glassdoor, is for one reason, that you did not get back to them on time about their performance in their interview. All that candidates want to know is yes, no, maybe, in the shortest possible time. So if you get interviewed at Compass, you will get a yes, no, maybe in less than 24 hours. In many cases, less than 6 hours. Right? So,
that's fantastic.
And then most companies complicate this by saying, were you welcomed properly by the receptionist? Right? Or did you get the right room? Were you comfortable? Was the coffee okay? I mean, it really doesn't move the needle. All that the candidate wants to know is, hey, yes, no, maybe. If the no, can you sit down and give me feedback to the extent that you can so that I can get better? So we've taken each aspect, even if you look at how we think about diversity and inclusion, and we've got a world-class leader in Chloe Drew, who is our president of, she's on my team, and we're lucky to have her. And so what Chloe's view on diversity and inclusion, and many companies spend a lot of time, which I think is one of the most important things, is saying it's just not about thinking about diversity and inclusion. How do we get our employees to give their time back to community? Not just dollars, not just involvement, but how do you give back the time? First thing that she asked me was saying, can you help meet and train a bunch of single moms in New York who do not have access to great interviewing training so that they can help find better jobs? This was my first day. She asked me, can you spend a few hours? I was like, oh my God, I was like, this is how I feel so energized coming to work. So I think there's lots of things we as HR leaders can do. So that's one of them.
I do want to hit diversity and inclusion in a sec, but one thing you mentioned is you see these things that are needle movers, and then there's other things that are not needle movers. And one thing we also see in our data is that when it comes to compensation, but also comes to benefits, there are certain things I think are real needle movers, and then certain things which are kind of really nice to have. And I think as small businesses, and you're again trying to compete with the big guys who have lots more resources, and they're throwing around free lunches, or they're throwing around all these extra perks and benefits. From the Compass perspective, what's been your learning on what types of benefits do you think really move the needle, and what types of things have you potentially not invested as much in because you ultimately don't think it's super important?
Great question. I think this is a significant aspect of how people feel whether the company cares for them or not. Right. So I think what we've done is, instead of looking at it as benefits and saying we're going to do this and that, we've created a program called Journey at Compass. So this is your journey, and we've got 6 pillars. One is about time away and all holidays. One is the financial benefit. One is the learning and development benefits, et cetera. But what we've done is every year we try to strengthen a pillar. As opposed to trying and spraying it with we'll do all of it, which you won't get the budget to do that. We've taken a very programmatic approach. What we found is that our employees absolutely love the we pay for full healthcare, but we don't do 401k match yet. And we've told our employees very clearly that we will do 401k match once we become profitable, and we're very, very, we're aggressively on that path. But we've been very open about it. So when a new employee gets up and says, oh, why don't you have a 401k match? I get up and say, thank you. This question has come up 5 times, but I'll answer it again. And I kind of, go through the answer. But when we ask our employees, every year, like all of you do, we ask our employees, would you rather give up fully paid healthcare? It's fully paid, there's nothing that you need to pay, versus 401k. Which one would you pick? 80% goes to pick this. So I think it is a program-driven approach. Have pillars. Tell your employees that we're strong on these. These are 4 things that we're going to get better at, and then you'll find answers. And if you're a small company, what we have found is that fairness, investing in careers, investing in managers, has a much more positive outcome than thinking about free food and lunch and sushi chefs and everything else. I came from that world, right? I mean, I love my Facebook benefits even today. I miss them, by the way.
Yeah. No, what impresses me is that it feels like you guys have very authentic and honest conversations and open, transparent conversations with your employees. As you said, you provide them a lot of context. So if you're not paying 401k matching now, you understand the context of, we're not yet profitable, but this is something which we want to do one day, which I think is truly what makes you guys, such a great place to work. And I think it's something that employees generally, certainly resonate with. And I think you'll see this practice a lot with our best places to work companies. Switching gears to diversity, inclusion, and belonging. It's a hot topic today in HR. First of all, what does it mean to you, and why is it important for Compass? Why have you hired a VP to cover this for Compass?
I think this is such an I would say probably one of my top topic today right now. My top where I'm focused on is working with Chloe. I think you have to mirror the customers you serve, right? That's just the right way to do business. And if you look at it, we serve customers from across the spectrum on anything that you want to talk about diversity and inclusion. So if you look at the stats that we have, we've got some big wins. We have our gender diversity is very strong. We're at 58% women and 42% men. What we're really proud of, in addition to this, is our diversity on managers. We have 46% women managers in the company. And Robert and Maya will still tell me, I thought, when I went to them, I said, oh, wow, that's a great score. They were like, no, we have 58% women, so it should have been 58% managers, right? I'm like, I didn't see that. You're right. So we're now, the Chloe is helping us push to that number. So we got some certain strength on the diversity piece. I think the inclusion piece, I think there's both inclusion and belonging, right? I think Chloe says this really well, where inclusion is, an invitation to be at the table. Belonging is when you truly bring your true self to work and your company allows that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's such a powerful way of saying that, hey, most people come to work with only one sliver of themselves. But great companies have found ways to truly get their entire selves to work. That's when you feel that you belong to this place. And it's just incredible how you can do it.
How do you do that, though? Like, what programs, what practices? Is it just from leading by example from the top that you show tolerance or you show inclusiveness in the way you interact with the employees? Or are there specific things that you're doing to actually drive?
That's a great question. Specific things. So you have to lead with yes versus no, right? For most small companies, let's say a team comes in and says, oh, we want to start an ERG. The first thing, an employee resource group for a particular set of people. The first thing you would say is, oh, there's no budget. No. So change your view from leading from no to leading from yes. Number two, it's really important that you understand the concept of share of voice in a meeting. If you look at groups that either are marginalized or underrepresented, they don't have a strong voice at the table because their managers are not trained to encourage share of voice. I think Google had this fantastic research called Project Aristotle. If you haven't read it, please take a look at that, which talks about share of voice. Just that alone, by making sure that you're asking for opinions from everybody in a meeting, that just becomes the way you run meetings, starts to bring in belonging. Right? Asking people, how are you feeling, as opposed to how are you? It's just a fundamental, I think, Pat from LinkedIn has talked about this, and so has a bunch of others on the West Coast. Just asking people, how are you feeling, is such a soft, nice way to pull people into you. Then, hey, how are you? I'm good, bye. Okay, yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but how are you feeling? People stop. And oh, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. You can actually have an icebreaker there. So there are lots of small things that you can do. The key is asking yourself, what does inclusion mean? What does belonging mean? And how do you uncover and how do you get to work around the fact that most employees who are coming in are only coming in with 20% of their true self? Your job is to bring their full selves to work. And that will inform you of the 10 things that you can do to bring their full selves to work. Do you participate in local events that truly brings diversity and inclusivity into your workplace? Do you allow employees to vote with their time? So it's just not that, hey, donate some dollars, but what do you do to kind of encourage those kind of groups? So those are important. There's no big strategy. It's a bunch of small things that you practice in the meeting rooms and in one-on-ones that people feel that they're included. And I've always said this, that as a job as the head of HR is for me to create a culture where it feels like a dialogue and not a monologue. And otherwise, it's just me. 5 guys sitting in New York and talking about to 163 offices, and they're like, what these guys are doing? Right? And so the dialogue is take tough questions. Yeah. Every week we have a Q&A on Facebook at Workplace. Workplace on Facebook. The questions are tough, man. And we allow, for inclusivity, for example, we allow people to vote on Slido anonymously. right? So we're like, we'll give you the option to vote with your real name or just go on Slido and be anonymous about it. But we'll take those tough questions.
Yep. And I mean, all of these feel like the right, good things for us to be doing. How do you then kind of tie it to actual business performance again? So, great, you have goals around the kinds of diversity and inclusion metrics you want to be hitting. What's the ultimate downstream impact that you say, we should be doing this because ultimately it's good for business?
Yeah, I think if you go down this path around too much HR, you forget to create what I call as a management system that you need to create to hit business results, right? It's really, really important that you're just not focused on just siloed HR functions, but you're trying to create a management system that creates great outcomes. And one of the best companies that I came across that many of you might not have even heard, it's the largest or the second largest private company in the world is the Koch Industries. The one in Wichita, Kansas. It's $110 billion revenue per year. They grew it from $20 million 40 years ago to where they are. Yeah. Koch they've written a great book, their CEO, Charles Koch, called Market-Based Management, which is a company in Wichita, Kansas, in non-tech, in petrochemicals and oil and refinery and drilling, has created this phenomenal way of creating great business results every single year. This has nothing to do with Coke and anything else about that, but it's really about his company and how he built it in the middle of in Middle America. It's just fascinating. You flip this over to Amazon, flip this over to Google and Netflix, etc. Most of these companies, what really unifies them is this management system that they have that creates, that rinse and repeats great products and services every single day. So the way you think about HR is how do you become a part of this machine? How do you teach leaders, both managers and individual contributors, what is the management system out here? Yeah. So what we've done is just this obsession about OKRs. And the OKRs are really not a dry OKR. We have a document called What is Great document, which are 5 questions. What is great about this? What is world-class about this? Why do you think this is world-class? How are you going to measure it? Who is the SPOA on it, which is single point of accountability. Every single feature, product, new release, has this one pager, what is great. So that creates this management system of results. To your question, saying what creates those results is just not a bunch of HR strategies in silo, but you hold this accountable through a management system. Very cool.
So all of this, we began the conversation is predicated on that Compass is going through transformational growth, hyper growth right now. I also heard you have this Compass 2020 vision. Tell me more about that. Of what are you setting out to achieve in the next couple of years, and what kind of growth should we be expecting out of Compass?
Yeah, so we're one of the few companies growing at a triple-digit growth rate on a triple-digit base of revenues, right? In a multi-billion-dollar revenue right now. We were just a small company. You got to understand, 2.5 years ago we were a tiny company, and then we've really kind of hit our strides out here. So the 2020 vision. There's a video by Robert Reffkin. It's really inspirational, 20 minutes, phenomenal, which is 20% market share in the top 20 markets by 2020. We are well on our way to hitting that even before 2020. Wow. The market share gains that we've had in key markets, especially in San Francisco, Washington, New York, they're like off the charts. Yeah. And that's happening because agents realize that Compass technology, products, people, leadership, culture, marketing, ops, and creative is so strong, is so compelling that when I joined Compass, simple thing, it's not about I feel great, etc. Those are all important. My business grows dramatically. Yeah. So that is what we're seeing. I mean, it's really, if you work with a Compass agent, many of my friends come to me and say, hey, Madan, I work with a Compass agent. Oh my God, the experience was transformative, completely transformational. The agent, the quality of the data, the quality of the solution, how quickly he or she helped me close the house or buy the house or sell the house, depending on where you were, and how less stressed I felt at the end of it. It's a simple reason that we are providing the tech machinery in the back end, the product and services in the back end to make our agents very successful. And that translates into this experience for people.
Very cool. So 20% market share by 2020. Yeah. Where are you today? Can you share that?
Yeah, I don't think we can share that publicly, but we are in double-digit market shares in almost 80% of our markets. So very, very strong market share.
So maybe ballpark, you got to kind of grow by 50%, double. We don't need specifics around that, but obviously you're going to have to grow your talent base even further. So if you're 2,000 people today, you're going to need to be 4,000 more in a couple of years. And yet, the context for all of us is that we're hiring in the US right now, and it's record low unemployment rates. workers have their choice on where to go. How's Compass going to pull this off?
Yeah, so we'll add 1,000+ people again this year. So it's going to be another big year for us, and our recruiting team is working furiously to make that happen. So look, there is simply no running away from the fact that it is a tough year on talent, meaning there's just record unemployment, which is great for the economy and for everyone else. I think you got to tell the story more number of times, and then you really have to have a clear strategy on both, be it on Glassdoor, be it on how you engage with candidates, et cetera. And then you're starting to see a bunch of companies which are starting to take this view that we are going to take work to great talent as opposed to great talent coming to work. I'm starting to meet a bunch of companies that are creating this remote working infrastructure, not remote, but kind of remote working infrastructure where they're able to meet great talent where they want to, as opposed to come there. So that's going to be.
Are you guys doing that, or are you just hearing about this?
We are. So our approach is that we co-create at work, and we ask people to come here, but at the same time, very flexible in how you want to think about work from home. Very, very flexible. The best way that I've approached this is saying it's between you and your manager. Yeah. Because I know I train my managers really well, and most of them, if not all, are just world class, and they will figure it out as to what works for them. But we're starting to hear from an industry standpoint that work is meeting great talent, as opposed to great talent meeting work.
Yeah. As you go through such growth, one of the things I think many companies would struggle in this kind of growth phase is how do you make sure that your culture stays true over that phase? And so you came into 200, it's now 2,000. How have you seen the culture grow, transform between 200 and 2,000? And how will it change, or how do you not want it to change as it grows from 2,000 to 4,000?
Yeah, great question, because I think it would be just dreaming on my part to hope that it won't change. It will change. It will evolve, and I think it should. Like any nature evolves to a large extent. I mean, keeps evolving. So you have to evolve with nature. As a company, if you take that as a microcosm of nature, you have to evolve your culture. There's no two ways about the fact that it will change. But what we have found are 2 or 3 things that won't change, right? One, employees want open, transparent, and honest communication about their careers, about their growth, about promotions, about why people get fired, about what happens if I do a good job out here. That won't change. It doesn't matter what happens in the industry. So you got to know, Jeff Bezos is phenomenal at talking about this. He's like, I don't know what's going to change in 10 years, but I know what won't change. Customers don't want to pay high prices. They want great selection. They want great convenience. So let's go build around that. So if you apply that to talent, employees, when they're considering you, especially new hires, they want to hear about your story. You cannot automate that. You can automate that to a certain extent. You can do the videos and all of that, but you cannot take the human element out of that. And then 2, you can't not have a Glassdoor strategy. Yeah. You just can't. You can say, okay, that's what it is. You have to have a story of what the great things about your company and what's it that you're working on. People want the honest truth, and today what you have done is you've created this, as I mentioned, this believability engine that just democratizes information, right? So you have to invest in that communication with new employees with a set of people who are doing this for you. And then 2, I think the way you think about bringing them and onboarding them to success, most people think about onboarding as a bunch of training. It is one of the most powerful ways that you can kind of flesh out great productivity early on, right? And then clearly helping managers to be great at and be inspirational in what they do has a disproportionate impact on how your company is going to shape up. It doesn't matter what the economy is outside. It doesn't matter it's a tough market economy or easy one, et cetera. Your managers play an outsized role in your company. And it is their responsibility to be inspirational, your responsibility to train them to be inspirational and hold them accountable to hard measures.
You mentioned there around, you've got to have Glassdoor strategy. You've talked a little bit about your Glassdoor strategy in which, you make sure that your recruiters really understand the story which you want to project, and I'm guessing you make sure that story is aligned with what you have on your side of your Glassdoor page. Are there other things that you found effective as you use Glassdoor as a recruiting platform and to get your message out? What is kind of the Compass Glassdoor strategy?
Yeah, so for us, we're very particular about making sure that we take feedback, whatever that is showing up, and we kind of have a discussion around how can we do a better job as a company? Not who wrote that feedback or why did that come? Like saying, okay, that is the feedback. How are we going to make sure that we get better at that? Right?
How often are you doing that?
With my team, I do that once every week with Anna and the communications team. We sit down and say, this is the feedback. What can we do to get better? So that's number 1. Number 2, I think many companies don't understand that this is a really powerful recruiting tool. Right? I mean, I'm like, why is it that companies don't use are still in the early stages of using Glassdoor as a recruiting tool, it's an incredibly powerful tool. You've got people on your platform already. So what you need to do is figuring out how do you engage with them. And most companies also think about recruiting tools as stick a bunch of videos. Right? I think people are tired with too much media. Right? I mean, so how do you think about what is your content strategy? In 30 seconds or 60 seconds, can someone walk away with a clear view of who you are as a company, what the opportunity is, et cetera? So I think that is, I would say, a secret sauce, which not many companies still are kind of figuring out, and they will figure it out very quickly. And also, I think people don't place too much emphasis on the fact that many employees check out the benefits page on Glassdoor rather than the benefits page of the company, right? And so they're like, because they want real truth, right? And I've always wondered, saying, why is it that companies don't kind of take some of those Glassdoor strategies that they have, where they have real feedback, and incorporate that into their own page, right? Because and sometimes I'm like, okay, you're wasting your time having a career page even. Just do LinkedIn and Glassdoor and get done with it, right? It's a much better way to engage talent, because that's where the talent is.
Yeah, love it. So again, for all of us learning, and I think, these are great strategies. And one, listening to your Glassdoor feedback, incorporating that into your HR processes. Two, thinking about Glassdoor as a recruiting platform, as Glassdoor has so many candidates coming to us every day. And then three, thinking about how your own company sites and your own company career pages integrate with your Glassdoor page. It's been fantastic talking to Madan. I really appreciate it. Put your hands together for Madan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Cheers.